Samantha McQuaid bought a blender and gave the store's clerk a 50 and a 1. She received 72 cents in change. If the sales tax rate in her community is 7.5%, what was the selling price of the blender before taxes? Okay, so we are told that she gives the clerk a 50 and a 1. So she gives him $51, she gets 72 cents back. Then we're told that the sales tax rate is 7.5%. So how can we use this information to figure out the selling price of the blender before taxes were added on? Well, remember, I always like to say that my first step is to figure out what they're asking for, which is the selling price pre-tax. Second, I pull out any equations that I might need. So in this case, I know that I'm going to need my total purchase price equation, which is equal to my selling price plus my sales tax. And I'm going to need my sales tax equation. And our sales tax is equal to our selling price multiplied by our tax rate. So let's see what we can fill in. Well, first of all, I can figure out the total purchase price. Total purchase price, remember, includes the original price of the item and sales tax, meaning that's the amount you actually pay the cashier. So if she gave him a 50 and a 1, so she paid $51 and got 72 cents back, 51 minus 72 cents, our total purchase price is equal to $50.28. So again, that's just the total amount she paid to the cashier. So $50.28 is my total purchase price. So that is equal to the selling price plus tax. Now let's break these down. I know that my tax is equal to selling price times tax rate. So what if I substitute out this selling price times tax rate for this? Okay, I'm going to substitute out the equation that's equal to tax for tax. They're equivalent, so I'm allowed to do this. So I rewrite this as $50.28 is equal to, we'll put selling in a different color, our selling price plus tax, and tax is equal to selling price times tax rate. Now I happen to know my tax rate, right? It is 7.5%. So I can write in 0.075 as my tax rate. So let's rewrite what we have so far. So we have that $50.28 is equal to our selling price plus 0.075 times our selling price. Now let's represent selling price as X. We're going to call selling X. And I think you'll see how easy it is to solve the equation from here. So let's see. If I replace X with selling, I get 50.28 equals X plus 0.075X. Combine like terms, that equals 1.075X. Finally, if 50.28 equals 1.075X, all I have to do is divide both sides by 1.075 to solve for X. And I find that X equals $46.77. Now the crucial step here is knowing that you're allowed to substitute out a term for its equation. You're allowed to substitute out a term for its equation. So in this case, I didn't know what tax was, so I got rid of it and I replaced it with its equation. Because I knew tax rate, that allowed me to turn this into a one variable equation, where the only variable represented in my equation was the variable that I was trying to solve for. Let's do another example. Ted Thompson found a good deal when he purchased a bedding set. He paid the store's clerk 2 $20 bills and a $5 bill. The clerk gave him $2.65 and change. If the sales tax is 7.2%, what was the selling price of the bedding before taxes? Okay, so similar problem here. Once again, start by identifying what you need to find out, which is the selling price. That's our goal. Next, pull out any equations we might need. So we know that we're going to use total purchase price. Now, if you're wondering where I'm pulling these equations from, remember that you have a reference sheet that lists all of the equations introduced in each lesson, and that would be a good resource to use. So our total purchase price is equal to our selling price plus any sales tax. You'll notice that I'm abbreviating the terms just to save time and space. Okay, also remember that tax is equal to selling price, and that's the same selling price we used before, selling price, multiplied by our tax rate. Okay, let's proceed. Now, because he paid in 2 20s and a 5, we can quickly compute that he gave the clerk $25. The clerk gave him $2.65 and change. So to figure out the total purchase price, the total amount he paid to the cashier, all we do is take $45, because it's 2 $20 bills, $45, and subtract $2.65, which would give us $42.35. So again, I computed that. I figured out how much money he gave the clerk, how much money the clerk gave back, and that tells me that he put $42.35 in that cash register. So that's the total purchase price. Now, let's continue filling in our equation. Obviously, I don't know selling price. That's what I'm solving for. So I'll just rewrite that here. Now for tax, once again, I'm going to do something a little tricky. I don't know the tax either. However, I know that tax is equal to selling price times tax rate. And I know that tax rate is equal to 7.2% or 0.072. So what I can do is, instead of just writing tax again, I can replace it with this equation, because this equation is equal to tax. So I'm going to replace it with selling price times 0.072. Now, just as before, to make things a little simpler, I'm going to set x equal to selling price, and that just saves me a little bit of writing, and it makes it easier to kind of think of this equation in the way that we've dealt with other equations. So now if I were to rewrite the whole thing with x instead of selling, I get $42.35 is equal to x plus 0.072 times x. 0.072 times x. If I gather like terms, I get 1.072x. Now, be sure that you understand where I got this from, right? Notice that x is really 1x. So if I add 1 to 0.072, I get 1.072x. From here, it's a matter of dividing both sides by 1.072 to solve for x. And I find that x equals 39.51. So that was the original selling price of the bedding. Again, to solve this, I started by asking myself, what do I need to know? I pulled out the equations I knew I might need to use. I plugged in the information I could, and then when I got stuck, I used substitution to help me keep going. The point of the substitution was to get me to a one-variable equation, where the only variable left in the equation was the variable that I was trying to solve for at the very end. Then I replaced the word selling with x just to simplify. From there I solved for x to get my final answer.